Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are EBS, your experienced technology partner for over 43 years. We specialize in the deployment of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, managed services, and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. My name is Darren Tolley, and I am one of the account managers here at EBS. Today, we are joined by Sicon, who we've partnered with for many years. Sicon provide innovative solutions which enhance Sage 200, covering a wide range of business needs. Michelle Duford, Sicon's sales team leader, will demonstrate how Sicon Manufacturing helps manufacturing businesses keep track of production costs and WIP, automate the process of creating purchase and planning works orders to ensure on-time delivery, keeping customer satisfaction high and stock holding as low as possible. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make this available to you in the next few days. There are lots of recordings on our YouTube channel. Remember to hit subscribe to receive notifications when we load new videos. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session. Without further ado, I will pass you over to Michelle. Morning, Michelle.
Morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. Darren set me up as doing quite a lot of stuff in the next hour, guys. So, like I say, one of the things that we obviously do is we'll provide an overview for you today. If you need a more in-depth demonstration specific for your business, then Darren and his team will happily pick that up with you with my colleague, Nikki Wright, who's also joining us today. So again, without further ado, because we're being recorded, I'm going to switch my camera off and I'd invite us all to do the same, and we'll show you some software instead. So again, any questions, pop them into the chat. Darren will be monitoring that and we can go in and have a little look and a bit more of a deep dive into some of the things that you want to have a look at. But from my perspective, I'm literally going to do a generic demonstration from beginning to end so that you can see exactly how the manufacturing suite can support your business. We work alongside Sage. We work alongside the business partners to provide solutions for our customers in many different guises. So manufacturing is one of them. And it may well be that you have a very, very, very basic requirement for manufacturing that can be covered with unique pieces of what I'm about to show you today. But as a manufacturing suite, the manufacturing suite comprises of works order processing. In other words, converting a bill of materials into an instruction to build. It also has MRP, so material and resource planning, for both the capacity planning side of your business, should you have that side, again, it's an option, and the material planning side of your business. So what do I need to do and what do I need to buy in order to actually go and manufacture these items? So works order processing, MRP. As part of the whole suite, you'll also get projects so that you can see the single holistic view of everything that we do in the system. And then there is also a product called kitting that sits as part of the manufacturing suite, just in case you are the sort of organization that manufacture the finished product, but in your endeavors to do that, you might have other products that you don't necessarily manufacture, but that you put together in a box or as a kit, as kitting would suggest, of parts that then become a finished item to the customer. The classic example would be the U-bend, which comprises of 3 different pieces that we sell independently, but we put them together and sell them as a kit called U-bend. So we're going to start our process right from the very beginning. Let me just get rid of that taskbar that's appearing on my screen, which drives me insane. And we'll simply go in here and start that process. So we literally are going to go from cradle to grave in here, guys. So we're going to create ourselves a brand new product. So we're going to, again, it really doesn't matter whether or not you're manufacturing technology, food. You'll see in my list, my stock list, I've got lots and lots of different types of built items. I've got some foam and I've got some sausages and I've got some cleansers and foam meters and paracetamol and kitchens, and you name it, I manufacture it. We're a very eclectic company that we're looking at today, but we're literally going to start this process right from the beginning. So we're going to go in and create ourselves a brand new stock item, because we won't want any stock of it because we're going to manufacture it. And for today, that's going to be called an EBS 002, just in case I've had an EBS 001 previously. Today, we're going to manufacture a Ninja fryer. Okay, so the air fryer is top of everybody's agenda these days, guys. So I'm just going to choose that one. I call it a Ninja Air Fryer 3. I'm not sure what version they're currently on. Now, I'm going to put mine into a product group called accessories and I'm not going to use batch traceability. But the thing to be assured of is that we do support your traceability requirements. So if you're using serial numbers, if you're using batch numbers, all very much supported by the system. We're going to keep ours relatively basic today. So we'll pop that in here. It'll go into a warehouse. We're going to start touching on some of the other modules that run alongside manufacturing as well. Things like shop floor data capture, barcoding and warehousing, Sicon documents, all of those things, again, more than possible. But it's a bit like this kiddie in the sweet shop. You can choose what is the most appropriate for you. And the guys at EBS can help you to discover what's going to fit to your requirement. So we're just going to create our warehouse. While we're here, we may as well go in and actually use the barcoding things. So let's just add that to a bin location where we're going to put that and pick it from. And it'll all become very clear as to why I'm doing that a little later on. Let's just make sure that I've only got one dash in there, and we'll put that into my default pick face bin. Again, because manufacturing is switched on, there's lots of things that we switch on inside of the system. So when we go in here into the Sicon tab against your standard Sage stock item, I can go in here and I can say when it's works order processing, there's a lot of settings that sit in the background. So is there a minimum batch size? Is there a maximum batch size? Do we want to add an extra quantity when we manufacture over and above our demand? Is there a production unit of measure? Are there sub-assemblies? So they can be as complex as you need them to be. I'm going to keep mine one relatively simple today, just for example purposes. But again, lots of these settings will be defined by you. Let's just pop myself back into the locations, because one of the other things I'm going to do in here is get rid of the standard Sage unspecified. And I'm also going to go into the warehouse itself and give myself some demand. So when we run MRP, what we're really looking to achieve here is, what do I need to buy? What do I need to build? So by setting myself some demand, and demand can come from a variety of different places. It might be your forecast. It might be your sales orders. It might even be your quotations, but it can equally be your desire to have a minimum stock holding that you want to maintain. Standard Sage gives us that ability to go in and actually set a minimum stock holding, but there are also additions that we can provide for you around the calculation of minimum stock levels based on historical usage. All sorts of things that you can speak to Darren and his team about. But we're going to give ourselves some demand in here by saying that our minimum stock level is going to be 25 of these. So we'd always like to have 25 of these ready and rocking so that we can provide those to our customers. Got a couple of other little bits and pieces switched on in here, which I'm simply going to go in and add things like my product image. Let's just attach that from where it already resides. Pretty sure I've got a Ninja air fryer in here somewhere. As you can see, we manufacture an awful lot of things as far as my system is concerned. So let's just have a little look and see if we can actually find my Ninja air fryer. Where's my air fryer gone, guys? If I can't find my air fryer, I'm going to call it something different. Let's just put an image in of any kind. That will do. But we're simply going to go in here and then say things like the product specification. I can add that too. So again, any of these. And then we end up with a set of documents behind my built item, which I'm going to tell the system is the case. Right. So let's just go in and actually say save to that. And as we know, being a built item, the system's going to say, right, you need to tell me what the bill of materials looks like. So this is where standard Sage bill of materials kicks in. So let's just pop ourselves into that, into the bill of materials, into the bill of materials list, and we'll have a look for our Ninja air fryer, despite the fact that it doesn't look like a Ninja air fryer. Do we call it? That's interesting. What did I do with that part? Bear with me for a second, guys. Let me just pop myself back in and actually find what I've actually done with it. My Ninja Air Fryer 3 is indeed a built item. Okay, perfect. Okay, just making sure that I've switched all the right settings on, guys. User errors, we do love all of that, don't we? So let's just go in and create a new one in here. Just make sure that we have actually got it. And it is indeed in there. There we go. Right, so now we can start designing what that actually looks like. We're going to go in and put some components in. We're going to add some of those components. And again, for poetic license today, I'm going to use some nuts and bolts and screws. So we're simply going to go into my product group called Ironmongery. And again, when you're designing the bill of materials, what you're really doing is saying, what do I need? What components do I need? What operations, things that we do in our business to build that? So that's exactly what I'm doing now. If you're already using bill of materials, that's absolutely fine too. We can actually extend the bill of materials out for you to accommodate Sicon Manufacturing. So let's just go in and display my items, and we are going to go in and say, yes, we do want some of these hinges and some of these nails and some of these screws. And we'll also have some of this edge banding as well. So then we can obviously say what our unit of measure is. So we're going to use these in eaches. So my components that I use, my edge banding will have in as a meter in there. And we'll have one of those, and we'll have two of those, and we'll have three of these. Okay, so there's my components that go into making up my bill of materials. In my operations, I can go in and I can add processes from a pre-existing library of operations, or I can design what those operations look like. For us today, we're simply going to use one that's pre-existing, my assembler, 25 minutes per item, and we're just going to add that in. Behind these operations, we add in to the standard Sage bill of materials the ability for you to be able to manage the way in which those operations would be carried out. Are they subcontract processes? Are they inspection operations? In other words, do we want to instruct our guys on the shop floor to answer a set of questions when they start that work or where they complete that work? How long does that run for? What components are actually used? Who are my subcontractors? Again, we're going to keep ours really simple today, and we're just going to have a 25-minute operation for assembly. So you get multiple operations, multiple components go into making up my finished item, which is going to be my Ninja air fryer, and we're simply going to go in and say save to that. Okay, let's just cost that away just so that we can see that we have indeed got some costs in the system, so we can estimate how much it would actually cost to build one of those. And there we go. And as we say close to that, we'll mark our part as active. Save that again. No this time, and that'll now disappear from the screen so that we can go in and see in our stock list one more time. That will obviously have converted that now to being an active, live, built, finished item, and right now we don't have any stock of it. So we're going to give ourselves some demand. Okay, so we've got 25 as demand. We're also going to put a sales order on for it as well. And there's also forecasts that you might put on for it. So your forecast can be imported in as part of the MRP solution. Your quotations might be considered in the MRP run. Your sales orders might be considered. But again, all absolutely down to you guys. Those documents that I added are also here for me to be able to go in and say when I want to use them. Do I want to use that product image when I send it out as a sales order acknowledgement, as an example? Do I want to use the product specification when I send it out? So we're just going to add some of those things in there. And now we're going to give ourselves some more demand. So we need 25 of them. We've got no stock. So we're going to need to manufacture these. So we're going to give ourselves some more demand by going into sales order processing and doing exactly that this time. So sales order processing in my sales order list. Do an awful lot of work for these guys at Acme. So we won't change that theory today. We're simply going to go in and put a brand new sales order on. And we're going to say that my customer would like that Ninja air fryer. So let's just go into these guys at Acme, who always have everything on a Friday. Got some lovely little pop-ups popping up in here as well, with lots of other modules that you can speak to the guys at EBS about. We're going to go in and say that my customer would like that Ninja air fryer. So I've got a 2, we've now got a 3. My quantity my customer would like is 2 of those. I don't have any stock of them. And clearly that's going to set my system off because it knows that it's a manufactured item to find out whether or not we need to build it or whether or not we need to plan for build for it. So there's a couple of options that we can give you off the back of a sales order. There's a little workflow that says, this is a manufactured item, we don't have enough stock of it, would you like to create it as a works order? An instruction for your guys in manufacturing. If you don't do it that way and you want MRP to pick it up, which is exactly what we're going to do today, then we can ignore that or we can disable that workflow off the back of a sales order. However, this is obviously creating demand for me. So we're going to sell it to my customer at £200. We'll save that away. And we're simply going to go in here and let's give it a customer order number as well. And we'll save that away. So now there's 25 that we would like as our minimum stock level. There's 2 that my customer would like. I'm going to go in and say no to my back-to-back order. My sales order 5957 is now going to ask for things to happen. We're not going to create a project off the back of this one, but like I mentioned at the beginning, inside of manufacturing, you have the option in the manufacturing suite to create a project would be your coverall. So if I'm regularly selling lots of different things to a single customer, and I want to have a look at that from a projects related view, all of the works orders, not just the costing of a single works order, a single demand, but everything that we've done with them, all of the revenue that we achieve with them, all of the costs which are associated to that build is also part of projects. So for the purpose of today's exercise, we won't. And this is my little workflow that I mentioned earlier on. So it says there's not enough of these and you need 2 of them for this customer. Would you like to create a works order now? Now I'm going to ignore that and I'm simply going to say no to that. Don't want to create my works order. I'm going to close it out of the way because I want MRP to pick this up as the demand. So not just this sales order, but all sales orders which are open and on for manufactured items is what my system, my MRP, is going to pick up for me. I have one other little piece of functionality from Sage switched on in here, guys, which is the necessity for me to be able to create my order acknowledgement. So I'm just going to print that just so that I'm doing all the things that I need to do. This is also where Sicon Documents comes into play. So for my manufactured item, which has a product image and a product specification against it, instead of using the standard Sage function to print it, I'm going to use the email and archive, which is Sicon Documents distribution, sending that document out the door with any supporting terms and conditions, header pages, your backgrounds, and more significantly for us today, those product images and specifications that I've told the system that I would like to go with it. The email that goes out, because it could literally do exactly that, push it directly out the door, could have your HTML, your hyperlinks and everything else that you want in it. However, mine's going to go into my drafts today so that you can see it. So we're just going to look in my drafts and you'll see my sales order acknowledgement to Tony at Acme to say thanks very much for your order for the Ninja air fryers. And here's the image that we attached and here's the product specification. The actual order itself, of course, has those header pages I promised you and T's and C's attached. It's also archived a copy of that against the sales order. So we've got full traceability all the way through the entire process with supporting documentation. The end result is that I now have some demand. I could use material planning. So this is the material and resource planning in here as part of material planning. I'm not going to run material planning. I'm just going to go into my forecasts, because it's in here that I can create a forecast for things that we might want to buy or manufacture. So I can import that from my customer. So we may have a forecast sheet coming over from the customer, which can be imported in. I can enter it in against a specific customer, or I can enter in my production forecast to pick up that item code. So my EBS item code in here for my Ninja air fryer, the quantity that we are forecasting that we would like to build. And this is all in addition to your standard things that we do in the system. So the sales orders, the quotations, the minimum stock levels, the forecast is another element of production forecasting. So we're going to go in here and say 10 of those and the date that we want to build them by and the warehouse that they're going to. Okay. So you can have as many of those as you like. If you are going to associate a forecast in MRP against a customer, at the point at which the customer then places an order, it will then ask you whether or not you want to reduce the forecast, because we're not going to double count my demand. And now that we have our demand, we're going to do exactly that and run material planning. So as we're running material planning, what's essentially happening here is we have a set of defaults, and those defaults are the things that I've told the system I would like it to consider when it looks at what I should purchase and what I should build. In here today, I've said, yes, I'd like you to look at kits. I'd like you to look at works order processing. Obviously, the most important one, if, for instance, you weren't going to use this from a manufacturing perspective and it was all about your buying decisions, all about purchasing, then material planning can be used exactly for that. It doesn't have to be for a manufactured item. So whatever your demand is on your manufactured item or on your components will be considered by material planning. And whether or not you want to consolidate that, whether or not you want to consider minimum stock levels or ignore them, ignore or include certain warehouses are all options for you to be able to run. We're going to run ours. And you'll see over here on the left-hand side that it will start now looking at the 2,500 odd components that I'm looking at. And it will start now to suggest to me things that I might want to delete because my demand has changed. Things that I might want to make for stock. Kits that I might want to put together. The most significant one for us today, as you can see, it's running through all of the bill of materials, is the suggested works orders, things that we need to build. And then all of the things that we need to complete those works orders are then going to be suggested purchase orders. So we're going to let that run through. In my demo environment, it probably takes about a minute and a half for this particular routine to run. We have customers, the guys at EBS have customers who are running MRP with way more components than I'm running, and also way less. So it really does depend on the level of your data as to how long this utility takes to run. Some of our customers, it might be a couple of hours. And for that reason, you do not have to have material planning open and running on the screen and therefore be out of the system. We can minimize it out of the way, let it run in the background and carry on working. We can also run material planning on a scheduler so that it does actually run overnight, for instance, so that it's ready and rocking, ready for you when you come in at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. So you can see now it's run through those suggested works orders, things that I should build, and it's now looking at all of the suggested purchase orders, not just for the components. So let it run through to the end. And in my suggested works orders, as you can see, it'll actually give me a list of suggested works orders. And in here is my Ninja air fryer, not just my Ninja air fryer, but obviously everything else that the system suggests to me that I should build. Like I say, when we're running this against a purchase order, so the components that we need in order to build these items, the suggested purchase order is going to be exactly for that. However, it will also look at all of your demand, all of the things that you've got a minimum stock level against, not just those components that are required for your build. So if you're a distribution type organization that equally sell things that you purchase in, as well as manufacturing items, it'll also look at that demand as well. So there's my Ninja air fryer. My system suggesting that I build or create a works order for 37 of those. And the reason why it's telling me to do that is apparent here at the end. So it says there's a sales order that needs it. There's a forecast that you've got on, and there's a minimum stock suggestion that we need to get back to. So my forecast says 10. My minimum stock suggestion is 25. My customer needs 2. That adds up to 37. I don't have any stock of it at the moment, so the system says go build 37. And it will suggest to you that works order 49 is therefore created. In your suggested purchase orders, you'll then see a list of all of those things which are required, not just to build the things that we need, but actually, again, based on their own minimum stock suggestions. The works orders that need them, the forecast which is on, the kits that need them. This is what material planning does, and what it does best. It enables that person that is making those buying decisions, making those productions decisions, to do it in the most informed way, because the system has calculated it based on your parameters. So where do I buy it from? If you've set a preferred supplier, it'll know where you'd like to buy it from. If you haven't set a preferred supplier, as I haven't in here, I can go in and I can suggest that I would like to buy it from this particular supplier. So it makes those buying decisions immediate on the screen for me. I can see what I've got in stock, what the system's recommending to me that I should purchase, and then I can make the informed decision as to whether or not I go ahead and do that. As you can see, our edge banding down here, I've probably got more than enough of the nails and screws and hinges that we put in, but the edge banding, there is a shortfall, and that shortfall for the edge banding is because we need to come back to a minimum stock suggestion. So again, lots of things. You can see I've got some free stock in here. So we're going to be able to satisfy my build for my Ninja air fryer. But what we're not going to be able to do is satisfy the build for that and come back to my minimum stock level. So hence the reason why the system is recommending to me that I purchase all of these things. So I'm just going to have a look at that one sitting at the top there, just to make sure that none of these are required for my works order, and we'll go back to our works order. Again, I could obviously go ahead and create all of my works orders, but we're just going to concentrate on the one which is of most interest to us today, which is that Ninja air fryer, as you can see, and we'll simply hit the button to say, yes, please create my works order. At the point at which we do this, if demand comes from a sales order, the finished item that my system is recommending that we build is going to be pre-allocated back to that sales order. In other words, reserved. Standard Sage, you can't reserve or allocate stock that you don't have. And that includes stock coming in and stock that we're going to manufacture. Whereas with manufacturing, Sicon Manufacturing, and specifically in this case works order switched on, that finished item is now going to be partly reserved for the 2 that we need for that sales order. So it will create what we call a pre-allocation. Again, even away from the whole manufacturing side of things, if you had a sales order that required a part that you buy in and you distribute to your customer that you don't manufacture, again, pre-allocations can kick in we do goods receipt it, or in our case, when we build it and book it in as a finished item, it'll then reserve it back to that particular sales order. So that's what pre-allocations does. So we're just going to go in and say, yep, we do indeed want to build this, and let's just go ahead and create it. That will now expand my works order. In other words, explode my bill of materials. So it's created works order 264 for me. That will actually pop it up on the screen for me so that I can actually see the exploded bill of materials, the processes that we go through from our operations. We can obviously see my free stock, so we can see where there's any shortfall potentially. We can see in here what's on order. We can even drill down into every one of these parts to see where that demand comes from. So I can literally right-click it directly from the works order, and I can navigate to the view stock movements. I can go in here and I can look at the history, the details, the balances. I can decide what I want to show on the screen and what I want to consider. My works order is a representation of what your bill of materials is, but it is also amendable, which means that you don't have to create a new bill of materials every time something slightly changes. So if this particular Ninja air fryer doesn't have this type of hinge anymore, or this type of hinge isn't available, I can remove it from this works order and replace it with something else. It may be that it's a particular color. I don't need to create a new bill of materials for every single color. My works order could simply say it's no longer these screws in silver, it's these screws in gold. So I can add and remove component parts. And if I do want to then update my bill of materials, I can. Equally, I can simply say this only applies to this particular works order. So we can slice and dice our data accordingly. Our operations are also sitting here, ready to rock and roll as well. So basically what the system's saying is go and get these components, go and do these things in order for you to then be able to book your finished item in. And at the point at which you're booking the finished item in, it'll then obviously consume, having issued all of the components, and suck those up into the work in progress for my works order. And that's really what we're looking to achieve. And all of the things that you do within that manufacturing process, allocating your stock, issuing your stock, doing the operations, associating the time to those operations, can all be managed within my works order. Any printed documentation can be produced from here as well. So when I go into print, I can print a route card. Your route card is your instruction for you guys on the shop floor for them to know what it is that they need to do, the physical things that they do. I can print a picking list for all of the components. However, as you would imagine, there are solutions for this that automate that process. So if you were using shop floor data capture, you'd be able to see that route card essentially in shop floor data capture electronically. Likewise, if you were using barcoding and warehousing, you'd also be able to see the pick list for the components for the works order electronically. But again, they are options for you, and certainly something to speak to Darren and his team about as you're going through this process. However, again, for today, we're going to keep ours relatively simple. I will touch on a couple of the things that the lovely barcoding and warehousing and shop floor data capture can do for me a little later on. But I want to actually complete my process here. So we're simply going to go in and close that down, knowing that that's works order 264. So I just want to show you from a purchasing perspective now that, again, we now have the option to take the recommendation for the quantity that the system would like you to purchase from the supplier that you've set as your preferred supplier, with the unit price based on the method of costing that you've set into the system, whether that's the last buying price, the average buying price, the list price, whatever it might be. So we've essentially created an instruction to build. Now we're going to create our, and again, this is all looking at lead times as well. So obviously the dates will be adjusted on the dates requested for your purchase orders. Again, we could simply select them all. I've got a nice big long list of things that the system's suggesting that I purchase. For the purpose of today's exercise, We'll keep ours really simple, and we'll have some of these washers, some of these different types of washers to go into different warehouses. Washer 2, washer 1. And we'll also have our freestanding cookers as well. Okay, so I make the decision about what it is that I'm going to purchase based on the recommendations from material planning, and we simply go ahead and create the purchase orders. This will then create as many POs as it needs to, depending on the number of warehouses and the number of suppliers that we've chosen. It will also associate the purchase of those items back to the originating reason why we are purchasing them. So if it's for a sales order or for a works order, again, it will make that pre-allocation back to that entity. So that's exactly what we want to do, guys. So let's just go in and actually create the POs. Having ticked the box to say, yes, show them to me, it will actually pop up the purchase orders onto the screen. So it'll create the purchase orders and consolidate them should it have the opportunity to do so. So if I've created 3 purchase orders, but actually if I had 17 items on there, all from the same supplier, it would put them all onto the same purchase order for me. So my POs are created. Again, we can use Sicon documents to push those out the door, making it really quick and easy. One click of a button, send them out with all of the right documents attached to them, etc., etc. However, for us, as you can see, one of the other things that we also see in the purchase order, standard Sage, but with some other whistles and bells switched on, it now tells me why I purchased those items. So when we look back at our purchase order for our washers, we can see that material planning suggested that we purchase those for a minimum stock suggestion. If we had purchased those for a works order or for a sales order, it will have made the pre-allocation, given me the reason in here, and allow me to see any pre-allocations that are set into the system as well. So your buying decisions are now automated, but you still have control. Makes it really, really simple, really, really easy. Let's just close out of these, despite the fact that they're over their credit limit. You can see all the others coming into play now. Quite a few suppliers in there, guys, that are over their credit limit. So you can see this particular one, completely different reason. We're buying this for a kit. And again, if you've set it to do so, you'll be able to see the allocation, the pre-allocation between the purchase order and the kit line, so that when this actually is received, it'll then automatically allocate it to the kit, the sales order, the works order, whatever it's been purchased for. So a good representation of what we're doing there. Okay. We'll touch on a little bit more of material planning later on, but we're just going to complete our process for manufacture just so that you can see the whole process all the way through, guys. So first things first, let me just pop myself back into my works order. There it is, my Ninja air fryer. It's worth noting at this point that from a production perspective, these list views are wonderful. I can see when it's due, when it's been generated, how many's on there. It's a great list view, and these can be tailored down so that you can filter them down to present the data that you want to be able to see in these lists. However, and in addition, there is also the ability for you to have dashboards, that kind of operational type dashboard that shows you the RAG system for the red, amber, green. Are we within our time? Are we outside of time? Are we overdue? How many works orders have we got? All more than possible, and they do come as part and parcel of the Sicon Manufacturing suite, should you wish to take advantage of creating them. Again, work with the guys at EBS, work with the guys at Sicon to create an environment that's intelligent. Okay, so there's my Ninja air fryer. It's the same works order that we looked at previously. Currently, its status, as you can see, is new. We haven't done anything with it, so let's do a little bit to it. So I'm simply going to go in and select all of the items, and I'm going to allocate them, reserve them to my works order. My edge banding. Fabulous. Okay, I'm going to take the edge banding out just for today's exercise because it's in a different warehouse to the one that I'm looking at, but that's fine. I'm just going to remove it for today's exercise because I do want you to see that I'm going to complete this. So having removed that, that will obviously be all in the history. So everything is time and date stamped in there for you. We can also see the WIP summary, should we wish to, at this point. We can see any scrap log, we can see any pre-allocations, we can see that two of these are actually reserved back to my pre-allocation to my sales order. My materials, my operations, my non-stock items, my labour, machine time, subcontract processes and comments can all be managed throughout the build. We have allocated out items. I could pick them via barcoding and warehousing, but we're simply going to go in ahead and say, yes, they have been picked. So we're moving the process along the bus. I'm also going to do exactly that again, and this time I'm going to issue them. So they're now going to come out of our stock and go into our work in progress. Now issued to my works order. I'm just going to take you out of this screen just for 2 minutes, just so that I can actually show you in here and on my device that I do indeed have a little utility down here called shop floor data capture. I'm just going to bring that into the middle of the screen. Shop floor data capture actually enables your non-Sage users, the shop floor data capture users, to be able to enter their time. It can also be a time and attendance system. So I can log in as the user. Today we're logging in as a user called Lewis, as you can see. So Lewis is now clocked in and he can see in the works order list. The route card, by the way, might also have a barcode on it, and that barcode would tell them which operation they're looking to do. They can scan that operation and it'll take them directly to it. This is the fully electronic version, no printed document. Here's your works order 26 file, where you need to actually perform some work. So Lewis will log in to works order 264. He'll be able to see in the operations that this is the operation that he needs to do, and he can start the clock ticking. In other words, he starts the clock, and as you can see, that's his work done. As he walks away from the machine, somebody else comes and logs in as well. It might be that there's machines are shared from bench to bench, workstation to workstation. It may mean actually shop floor data capture is never going to be a thing for you and just enter in time. They're all choices for you, but the reality is that I can go away, do my work, and once I've completed that work, I can come back and tell you that I've now finished that work. It will then immediately send a message back to that works order to say that the actual time that was taken to do the assembly work that was estimated was going to be 25 minutes was actually 41 seconds or 43 seconds as the clock is ticking there. So I'm simply going to say, yes, please go ahead, stop and pause, fully complete my finished item as far as the operations are concerned, and it will now feed that time back to my works order. So it's 100% complete as far as the time is concerned. We can also use shop floor data capture to issue the component parts should we wish to. However, for us today, as you can see, we're just going to pop ourselves back in here. Just going to refresh that just very quickly. I do want you to be able to see that the labour portion here is now populated by the time that Lewis spent on that item. So we're costing for all of the materials and we're costing for all of the time that we take. And now we can actually complete our process, having consumed all of the components and completed all of the work. We're going to book our finished item in. So all 37 of them are going to get booked in. If it is serialized, if it is a traceable item, of course, it'll then ask you what the serial number is. You can also adopt the serial number as being the works order number, sorry, the batch number as being the works order number. And you can ask the system to automatically create serial numbers based on that. if you're using that element. However, for us, it isn't a traceable item. So we're just going to book those 37 in. And at the same time as booking those 37 in, it will take that pre-allocation back to the sales order and make the pre-allocation a physical allocation. And I'll say, yes, do indeed do that. We have now satisfied and completed our works order. Whole ream of reports that we can provide for you off the back of this as well, guys. Again, this is a relatively high level overview at this stage. My works order is now booked in. Back into my stock list, and we'll just refresh our list for my Ninja air fryer, and you'll see that we do indeed have 35 free stock. 37 were booked in. 35 of them are now free stock based on my forecast and my minimum stock level, and 2 of them have now been allocated back to my sales order, where if we look in my sales order list and we just refresh that list, you'll see that it has now indeed been fully allocated. And as far as the system is concerned, is now ready to be picked, packed and dispatched out of the door. So we're just going to pop myself back in here one more time. This time I'm going to go into another of our solutions called barcoding and warehousing. I'm just going to go in just to refresh ourselves just before I move on. Our sales order was 5957, which is now fully allocated. So when we go in to dispatch the sales orders, and again, this is just all happening via Wi-Fi, you can see in my list of things to be dispatched is sales order 5957. We can create a wave pick for it. Again, barcoding and warehousing is an option, guys. You do not have to use it. But the reality is that it's a nice, quick and easy way of me getting to show you what the power of the system is. So the first column that you're seeing on the sales order is exactly that. It is the information on the sales order, who my customer is, what the delivery address is, maybe some analysis codes that pull through. The second column is my pick list, and it's telling me to go and get 2 of those Ninja air fryers from AC10A. So we can scan the barcode on the end of the bin, and it will say, yep, here's AC10A. I can scan the barcode on the item, or I can type how many it is that I'm picking, and that's exactly what my system has now done. Picked those items, which can then be picked to then being packed and dispatched. So we're just going to say dispatch all of the picked items. No courier. There's another solution called courier integration, guys, which again you can use should you wish to. For us today, we're not going to choose the courier. We're going to say no courier required, and we're going to dispatch that item. And having dispatched that on the handheld device, that's all live to Sage when we've completed our process. So you can see it was allocated. Let's just refresh that list, and now you see it as being fully dispatched, all of the paperwork attached to it, all of my customers' requirements up to date, and my build done. And after 50 minutes of my voice, guys, that's normally more than enough for anybody to cope with. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Hopefully that's been a good overview for you today on the Sicon Manufacturing suite and a couple of the additions that we can also offer for shop floor data capture, for barcoding, and for the management of documentation. That's me, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Very welcome.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions.
Fabulous.
How often can I run MRP?
So as I alluded to, there's a couple of options for you. In actual fact, you can run it as often as you want to. If you want to run it every hour, that is absolutely your prerogative. However, if you want to run it on a scheduler and let the system do it automatically, then there is a utility to enable you to do that. But yeah, it doesn't stop you processing, doesn't hold up your system, then you can run it as often as you'd like to, Darren.
Okay, so from an SFDC, which is an option that you talked about, what devices can I use with that?
It's an Android device very often. I mean, when you saw me running it on the screen there, guys, I was actually running it on a Civic device, which is the same device that I use for barcoding and warehousing. It's just an Android device, but for shop floor data capture, It's very often a tablet-based solution. Again, Android only, but it means that multiple people can walk through that screen, log into that screen, and potentially they might also have a Bluetooth scanner attached to it so that they can scan the barcodes on the route card, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's Android only.
Okay. And one element of the MRP that we haven't seen today, it's just worth mentioning that it's there, is the planning capability as well.
Absolutely. So I alluded to the capacity planning. We didn't cover it today. So those operations that we put into the system. So if you are the type of organization that manufacture with labor operations attached, then not only are we going to be able to see the demand, but we can also enter into the system the capacity of the availability of our people, which would then compare availability to demand to give us capacity to build. So it'll automatically work out for you how long and how many hours or days it's going to take you to build it, and present that to you into Capacity Planner. But again, if you need to see that in more detail, we can provide you with additional demonstrations for it.
Yeah, I think we have a previous webinar recording that has some visibility of the graphical planning element.
I'll just pop it back up onto the screen just very quickly, Darren, because we've got a couple of minutes, just so that we can actually show you as under material planning. This is the one that we concentrated on mostly today, was the whole material planning side of it. But as part of cycle material and resource planning, capacity planning is obviously there for you. So when we go into the rough cut, again, there's lots of different ways of being able to view this level of detail. But what you're basically seeing here is all of your machine availability, your machine demand, your labor availability, and your labor demand compared into a single screen. So you can automatically see where your issues are. I've obviously got some operations in there which are a bit rubbish. So my labor demand and my machine demand, in my case, this is a really, really wonderful way of being able to see we are over capacity. So labor demand, machine demand outweigh our availability for labor and machine availability. So this is a quick way of being able to see we've got a slight issue in terms of production. If we've got an issue in terms of production, we can drill down to our teams to see where the load is, to our employees to see where the load is, to our machines and our machine groups. However, when we then start looking at, actually, do we really need to start looking at changing some of those operations so that they are in a different place, or some of those works orders? So operations are the individual things that you do within a works order. Your works order is an entity by itself. Again, excuse my rubbish data in there, guys. We're simply going to go back in and into my operations scheduler or my works order scheduler, and it'll do exactly that. It will pop it into a calendar for you so that you can then see where your load is across those weeks. So let's just refresh my list to bring something into view, guys. I might have to go backwards in time. There we go. We've got some works orders coming in here, as you can see. And then you then have the ability to pick them up and move them in your scheduler. So this is a whole works order that I'm looking at the moment, but we can do that individually on the operations as well. And then if I actually want to go in and look at that works order, I can actually double click it from here and it actually pop open the works order so that I can actually see the change in dates which have been taken into consideration.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
So, okay, I think that's all. I can't see any more questions, so we can finish up there. Thank you, Michelle, for doing that today, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for your time.